On this week's GTA 5 o'clock, Grand Theft Auto 6, our best guesses at the story, the characters, and everything you need to know. It's all here on this very special episode of GTA 5 o'clock. Hello and welcome to this special edition of GTA 5 o'clock. It's the first episode we're doing in 2018, and as a special treat, it's all about GTA 6. Joining me to talk all about it is, I was going to say regular host, but a host of the previous show is Dan Dawkins.
Hello.
Hello, Dan. So a bit of context then. When we were talking about GTA 5 back in the day on GTA 5 o'clock, that was maybe 2 years before the game came out?
Yeah, about 2 years, but I mean, they had literally just announced the game, so we did have an actual thing that was happening to talk about. Let's be honest, is GTA 6 going to happen? Yes, it is going to happen. But, hey, we could be quite a way off an announcement, which we're going to talk about. But what I really wanted to do was to address a lot of the wild rumours that are doing the rounds in this, this sphere of YouTube commentary and predictionation, to talk about, sorting the nonsense from the sort of credible beans of truth.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through what Rockstar have said on record about GTA 6 and the development of the game and that kind of thing. We're going to look at where it's going to be set. We're going to look at some of the story and the characters and the gameplay techniques that they might use. We're going to go through all of that and basically say how realistic we think that is based on previous experience and what we know from the industry. Correct?
Correct.
Great. Well then, let's start at the beginning with the thing that has the most basis, what Rockstar have actually said about GTA 6 on record, which isn't a lot.
Yeah, not a lot. And the brilliant thing is, the most concrete thing they've said on record is from a man who no longer works at Rockstar.
That does cause problems.
But he was a very important man. So this is GTA and, Rockstar North's former president, Leslie Benzies, and long-time listeners of GTA 5 o'clock might recognise him because he did an exclusive set of interviews with us back in 2013. Some of that's actually still very relevant today. Now, what he'd said back in 2013, this is in an interview with Develop magazine, he'd said, "We don't know what GTA 6 will be, but we've got some ideas." And he said, "We've got 45 years worth of ideas we want to do. We'll pick the right ones." He says, "It comes from the idea first. Where it's going to be set is the first question. Then it defines the missions. You're going to do different things in LA than you're going to do in New York and Miami."
Yeah, so I mean, even taking that 45 years worth of ideas, I'm going to guess that is on a life cycle of like 5 years a game. So it's actually only 8 ideas.
yeah, something like that. I think the thing is interesting and the core point to make is that even though Benzies has left, it seems unlikely that Rockstar would have changed their entire development paradigm in his absence. And I think something they've always talked about for their studio is how incredibly sort of flat and collaborative it is. And this was talked about in the Develop interview, where anyone, from scripter to animator or whatever, can throw in ideas. And if it's good and it sticks. So I wouldn't have thought a massive ripping up of the methodology would be on the cards. Ergo, a discussion about the location will always lead the next GTA game. And
you'd assume that definitely by now, with the progress that Red Dead's made and all of that stuff, that GTA 6 is almost definitely a way into development. Yeah, there's this interesting thread here. Like, one is that somebody I know, this is so bad, this is such a bad thing, as people are going to call me out for this. Somebody who I know, who I trust, who works in software development, 2.5 years ago at E3, said the weirdest thing out of the blue about, "Oh, we need to talk about GTA 6. And he laughed. And I said, "Well, come on then." And he went, Let's do it.
I literally can't. But it's someone who I trust, right? I mean, I know that's so tenuous, and I didn't get anything beyond that. But, did I think it was in development at that point? Yes. Right? Now, what's interesting is there was a rumour that did the rounds from a website Tech Radar in 2016, saying at that point Rockstar hadn't set a location, but were considering Tokyo, of all places, right? Which they'd ruled out for various reasons. The thing I'm sort of staggered by is that, 3 years on from the release of GTA 5, they were still considering the location. Does feel a bit fishy to me. I'm sure they'd have discussed it earlier on. And as we'll talk more about as we chat, I think potentially the reason it's taken so long is because of, maybe the sheer ambition or scale of what they're planning.
Yeah, and if you are going down the fact that they haven't quite decided on it yet, then there's a number of factors at play in maybe it's multiple locations, maybe the events of the world that have happened in the last 2 or 3 years have changed a lot of things internally, because there's definitely a lot more stuff for satire now around.
Oh, so much. And I think it's a coalescence of all those factors. And the big top layer on all of this, and this is something that you've spoke about, James, with me in the office, is that the thing you have to consider is nobody knew how GTA Online was going to go at the point when they released it. And it did take a while to sort of turn on after they released GTA 5. It's unequivocally had teething troubles. It's mired consistently in controversy because people get angry about it, because people get angry about everything. But it's been a phenomenal success. Phenomenal. Now, I sat this morning through Take-Two, the parent company of Rockstar's, their earnings call from just last week, hosted by their CEO, Strauss Zelnick. Now, Strauss Zelnick talked about how crazy successful GTA Online had been. And he said that essentially, I think there was a firm called Superdata, an analyst firm, who back in July 2017 had estimated Rockstar had made $1.09 billion, right, from GTA Online alone, right? And then if you consider they've sold 90 million copies of GTA 5, the user base for that game is incredible.
Yeah.
And more so, the thing is mind-blowing, 4 years on or whatever it is from the release of GTA Online, last December 2017, was the biggest month ever for users. I'm doing the mind-blown hands here. But it's incredible. And I know that was probably triggered by the Doomsday Heist, which is one of the most significant releases they've had. But, it's so healthy. And something that, again, Strauss Zelnick stressed in the call just last week was they're going to continue to support GTA Online. And a lot of the conversations from various analysts at the end of the call were like, how are you going to support that and Red Dead? And it was super diplomatic. There was no big giveaways. But what he did say is we are going to continue to support both.
Yeah.
So I don't think they see them as competing, even though they clearly are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I guess the crazy fact is, when you think of the money on that terms, GTA Online is a free service. So all of that money has come from shark cards and in-game purchases. There's no paid DLC or anything like that. It's just you buy the game, which isn't part of that $1.09 billion.
Yeah.
And then it's just on things that you want, like new cars and new houses.
It's just incredible. And again, this is jumping ahead of time a bit, but something else Strauss Zelnick talked about was the success they'd had in the kind of mobile space and translating companion apps of other properties they own. So the example they used was a WWE companion app and how they were able to monetize that. So it's a different conversation, but you do think, what will that mean for GTA as they spin out? Because essentially, you've got to drill this top down and go ultimately Rockstar are part of this company called Take-Two, and it's all about the money. And the creativity, but definitely all about the money.
Yeah. So that's where we're at in terms of Rockstar then. If we're going to aim for a release date, you don't have to pluck it out of midair. You can use some techniques to go, well, it might be here, and that date is going to be quite a long time away, because if you look at previous examples from announcement, you've got to wait at least 2, 3, 4 years before that game even gets near to being released.
Yeah, so I've just written an article for Games Radar related about everything we're talking about today. In it, I've done a little bit of spreadsheet maths when I've looked at the release of all the major consoles. I love a spreadsheet. I love this spreadsheet more than the normal spreadsheets I look at. And I did a little comparison of all the major GTA console games, the day they announced them and the day they were released, and then looked at the gap between announcement and release, right? Then I looked at the gap between releases. So what was the gap between the release of GTA 3 and GTA 4, or the announcement of GTA 3 and the release of GTA 3? Mm-hmm. So that's all in there, right? Now, what was very clear was back in the early 2000s when they were releasing GTA 3, GTA Vice City, they were able to put them out, initially on a yearly cycle, because it didn't require anything like the level of technical heft and development cycle. And the announcement to release windows were as low as 5 months, or maybe even 4 months for some of them, right? But as you move towards GTA 4, the leap from San Andreas to GTA 4, you start to look then at a gap between announce and release of nearer to, say, 22 months. And it was exactly the same between, I think, GTA 4 and GTA 5, about a 22-month, 23-month gap, right? Now, who knows? The future may not represent the past, as all stockholders and etc. say, right? But if they were to maintain that gap, and assuming that they are not going to announce GTA 5 before Red Dead Redemption 2, which, let's face it, would be sort of lunatic. There's no way.
There's no way they're going to take their own thunder from a game and be like, hey guys, Red Dead's out soon, but also take a look on the horizon because GTA 6 is coming.
It's just literally no way, right? And so Red Dead is out on the 26th of October 2018. So even in the craziest scenario where they announce GTA 5 the day after, which they won't, right? If you were to extrapolate out sort of 22 to 23 months after that, which is almost 2 years, you're looking at essentially a late autumn fall release for GTA 6 in 2020. Now, wow, probably more likely is they're going to announce GTA 6 sometime in 2019, maybe like early 2019-ish, right? You're still looking at late 2020, early 2021. And that's without the potentials for delays.
Yeah.
And that just seems so certain. And so the only thing I would say as a potential rejoinder to that is I've written about this on the article I've written for Games Radar. What if, massive what if, they were to do what Netflix and J.J. Abrams have just done with the Cloverfield paradox, where they go from announcement to release as a massive, big FU to the industry. Look at what we're doing. We're dropping the biggest game in the world overnight. And I think I joked about this back in the days of GTA 5, but I think we're still quite a way away from the reality of that, because there's a reason there's an announcement and a hype cycle and a release cycle, and a lot of it is to do with pre-orders, physical sales, hype, building audience, all that stuff that's about making sure a game's a success and creating an insulation window where you definitely know a lot of people are on board from day one.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd say that if anyone was going to do it, Rockstar and GTA 6 would be one of the only games that you could possibly even consider doing that with.
Of course.
But even then, it's you have to look at all the marketing that Rockstar do around all of their games. They love marketing and trailers and teasers and all of that pre-hype. That's why games get announced 4 years before they come out, because it just keeps building that momentum. I mean, I'd love to see it just as a surprise, hey, here it is. But I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. But then if we are talking 2020, 2021, you're almost definitely considering the possibility that this is a PlayStation 5, Xbox, whatever that's going to be called, game.
100%. And I think that's the key overlap here, is that I think the GTA game we will get on PlayStation 4 is GTA Online. And GTA 5, let's not forget, that's actually out on PS4 and is playable. But this has to be a generational leap. And I think, I know they did it with San Andreas, but 2020 feels so far at the extreme of what PS4 Pro or whatever it is might be. I just can't see them doing anything other than leaping to a new platform.
Yeah.
I guess a little bit like they did with GTA 4. And in fact, 2020, 2021 might be even a year or so into PS5's life. And again, PS5, who knows, right? I'm not putting this down, I'm not remortgaging my house on this or anything, right? But you'd be amazed if Sony weren't going to talk about PlayStation 5 in the next 12 months, I think.
Yeah.
And ergo, there will be conversations in the background, and I think Rockstar will be building for a brand new platform, because essentially, again, like we've talked about, this is all about building a spike in the ground or a user base who will then play out the next 4 or 5 years of GTA Online. And I don't see the reason to build that again on the tail end of PS4.
No, especially when you've got the support base of Red Dead Redemption 2 and its online component to carry you through the next 2-3 years to the end of the PS4 life cycle before you start generating ideas for new games and new online things like that. It fits perfectly into here's the new thing for the new console.
100%. So I mean, are we saying that out loud? And I agree with this. Is late 2020, early 2021, probably the earliest we're going to see GTA 6.
Yeah, on a next gen machine, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I agree. So I think what we could do now is maybe dive into some of the crazier rumours, and they really are rumours, about settings and that kind of stuff. And there's already loads of theories online. I'll be completely honest with you, with my sort of evidential hat on, a lot of it is no more substantial than, like, you know, the froth off a latte, right? It's completely...
Some of these are rumours that have come from no cited source that may or may not be somebody just going, I'd like it to be set here, so I'm going to say that. But anyway, let's have a look at them and see what we think about them. You've had a look at where the games have been before, and if they were going to return to a city that already exists, there's a couple of likely candidates.
Yeah, I mean, this is the obvious stuff, right? Where GTA, for such a long-running series, has only actually been to a very limited number of locations, and they are Liberty City, which is the home of like GTA 3, GTA 4, Lost and Damned, The Ballad of Gay Tony, Vice City, which is GTA Vice City and Vice City Stories, and then I guess you could say they're the same, San Andreas / Los Santos, which gave us sort of different interpretations of similar countrysides, you know, which was San Andreas and GTA 5. And, you know, even though notionally San Andreas was set across a bigger set of states and you know, cities, Los Santos is actually the much bigger physical map. So
it's like the hub of that world.
Yeah. So, you know, they're not going to go back to Los Santos again because they're still there. That doesn't make any sense. Then you've got a choice between, is it Liberty City's turn or, you know, is it Vice City? To only look through that narrow lens. And I don't think it would be bold to go back to either of those locations. As much as people are, you know, excited about, say, Vice City returning, that's the one everyone is crazy for. Like, I was on GTA forums this morning looking at their poll for the most popular location amongst, you know, readers, and yeah, it was unequivocally Vice City, because we all like Vice City.
Yeah, because it's cool in its 80s, and, you know, there's a lot of people grew up with those kind of songs and that imagery and stuff, but I think you're right. I don't think Vice City nowadays is as appealing to the audience that they'd want as it was back then.
Yeah, I agree. And there's even quotes, and this is in the Games Radar article, from I think either Leslie Benzies or perhaps one of the Hauser brothers, you know, the sort of like creative leads of Rockstar, saying essentially, you know, Vice City is a cool place, but it's all about the era. Like, if you don't set it in the 80s, it just isn't the same vibe. So I don't see why they'd want to remake a 1980s, you know, on its own, as a singular location. I just think it's a bit backward looking, it's a bit restrictive. The theory I like more, though again, I don't know where this is really coming from, is this idea that GTA might expand to encompass multiple states. For example, this is wild, all 52 states of America. Really?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like,
really?
The crew's doing it with cars and planes and things, but I mean, that's just roads. I mean, I say just roads, but you know, it's like a driving, flying simulator thing. But if you're trying to populate those cities with NPCs and shops and some kind of like interior stuff, like, it's crazy. That's a crazy amount of work to be doing.
It's just insane. And when you go back again to what Leslie Benzies had told us on GTA 5 O'Clock in 2013, he talked about his dreams for GTA Online and where it could go. And he'd said, essentially, they weren't going to stop until they created the world, right? GTA World. And sort of said, there's, you know, aside of the size of the disc and the memory, there's no reason we can't do any of this. It was all very pie in the sky, to be honest. You know, you could tell that. But, you know, that was clearly the way they'd thought about, can we make this the world? And then actually, while he was talking to us, he'd scaled that conversation back to say, but we do have some locations that are familiar to us we could go back to. Winky wink, and we were going to laugh. And, like, we didn't get him to say, you know, we want to shake him and go, it's Vice City, isn't it? And, you know, he didn't say that, obviously. And 4 years on from that conversation, GTA Online hasn't gone anywhere apart from Los Santos. Like, it's created new interiors, given us new vehicles, a new kind of narrative with the Doomsday heist. It's even given us, like, you know, crazy stunt missions and God knows what. But it definitely hasn't spilt out to a new location yet.
No, and I think if you're looking at the future of GTA Online, like for GTA 6, then that is maybe something where you can see it going. Like, you could make that world bigger, have more states in it, because then you're not reliant so much on the game disk and the memory, and then you're just in the cloud and server side, and it's all the stuff that they can fit on that. So it's more likely that you'll get a bigger expanse of different cities, different places to go for the online element, and maybe you'll just get a single player version of the game set in, well, one or multiple cities.
Yeah, and I guess this is where potentially the conversation also interlinks with the lead characters conversation, where again, Rockstar had said to us when we talked to them, one of the reasons they use multiple characters, there's two main reasons they use multiple characters, right? One was that it was essentially a game logic way to allow you to teleport across the map. So rather than going from like the city of Los Santos to the very northern tip, which is a hell of a drive, it's like a 15-20 minute drive right in the game, they could like have secretly put Trevor off camera to the north, so when you warp into his body you're already there. So they openly said it was a game design device to do that. They also said it was about kind of resolving the conflict in the types of different players who play GTA, so that some people play GTA and just wanted to play it almost like, I guess, like an aspiring young hood or a gangbanger, bling life, rap music, shooting it up, all very exciting, right? Other people wanted to play it in this very conservative, doing things the proper way.
Stopping at the lights.
Yeah, and that sort of thing. And then there was another strand of saying some people are just, sociopaths and they want to go in and just do the rampage modes and kill loads of people. And, broadly, those were the roles that, Franklin, Trevor and Michael appealed to. They allowed you to, within one body inhabit a different type of behaviour. So for Trevor to go nuts and kill loads of people was completely in character. But if Franklin or Michael had done that, it would have made them a lot less sympathetic.
Yeah, and you do find yourself using those specific characters to do specific things. Like if you're going to go rampaging around the map, you're like, are you Trevor because he's mad?
Yeah. And so taking that further, that's such a good device and so consistent. Why would they drop that now, right? I don't see any reason they would drop that. And if you're talking potentially about a game that's spanning a bigger set of locations or a bigger set of cities, it would be very easy, for example, to have one lead character in one city, one in another, one in another. So there's like 3 coexisting big city worlds which could map into GTA Online, and then if you switch between them, you're switching characters, not physically driving between these places. Or you could use that mechanic like they used in St. Mark's Bistro in GTA San Andreas, was it, where you flew in a mission up to the sky and it looked, oh my god, I'm literally flying to Liberty City, but then after a point the game tricked you and dropped away and you were actually secretly ported to. So I think, they would do something. I can't imagine you could physically fly between, say, either or 52 states of America, or at another extreme, Vice City, London, and Tokyo. It just sounds too, doing the hand blowing thing again. No chance.
Yeah. Well, then why would you want to? Like, think how long that would take. Like, if you're just doing that, and all you've got to do is fly the plane across. I mean, some people will obviously want to.
I know.
But, you're looking at, like, it takes an hour to get over there, and you're just like, no, I need a quicker way of doing this. So let's quickly go through a couple of other locations that have been bandied around. A return to London, potentially, but more likely unrealistic, right?
Yeah, there were quotes from The Guardian, who did an interview with Dan Houser in 2013, who talked so much about the sense of American identity related to GTA and how to set it somewhere else might kind of change what that game represents. And I guess very practically, a lot of people have pointed out they'd have to almost remodel every single car in the entire game in the history of the series. There's all those kinds of things. You might need all new brands and blah, blah, blah. I'm not so concerned about that. I think, on one hand, I'd have completely dismissed London. I think it is a bit of a throwback. But recent world events does make it a much more attractive setting to say topical things about the world. You think of London as, the epicenter of financial trade. You think about it as the kind of the issue around non-domiciles and Russian influence and interference. You think of it as a center, in a really depressing way for global terrorism. You think about all these different narratives, and Brexit, right? Like Brexit, obviously. All these narratives that interlink with London as a location. And I think as a story designer, it starts to feel quite attractive, and it is very much a global city. Now, do I think they would throw it all into London? Probably not. I think it's too big a gamble for the huge US user base. But whether, Sam and Dan Houser as Brits go, do you know what? We're Brits. Rockstar North are literally based in Scotland. come on now. Maybe it's just the moment we bite the bullet and make the game in Britain we've always wanted to make. And we make it set in London, and the rest of the country is essentially the British countryside, because of course it would be like that. I mean, Britain even thinks of itself like that, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, I'd love the idea of missions set in mini metros spinning around English country lanes, double Uzis blazing, and that would be so fun, so amazing. Like that, surely that's got universal appeal, you know. There's something ridiculous about that. But that's me fantasizing, not what I actually think. Right?
No. Yeah, and I think I can't see the whole game being set there, but if we are going down that route of there are different cities, maybe they're set in different places around the world, you can see London being like a part of that. And just having a main or side character live there, that you go there every so often throughout the game, visit them in London, or you take control of them in London, and you go around and you do something that's related to the rest of the characters elsewhere. Like, that could work.
I mean, how much would I love for GTA to force itself into, like, Swindon city centre, right? But it's not going to happen.
Okay, quick ones for the other two. Tokyo. What are we saying about Tokyo?
Well, this is all coming from that Tech Radar rumour. I don't know how, where it came from or how it stands up. It's an exciting location. I think visually, you know, it's like the land of Blade Runner and all that kind of stuff. It would look fantastic. Opportunity for muscle cars, Yakuza, etc. I don't know. That feels kind of very played out to me. I don't know why globally you would want to make that a focus of your story anymore. So I'd be surprised.
And then the final one is like a futuristic storyline, or some city but set way off in the future. There's even been questions about time travel.
This is mental. This is mad. Like this is one of those things. I feel like a website invented a rumor and quoted themselves as the source. This came from Christian Today a little while back, saying there's rumors, you know, invented by us that that maybe it wasn't, but it felt like that, right? That you know, the game's going to be set with a sci-fi setting and much further ahead, and I find that quite hard to swallow. Like, I really find that hard to swallow. And I think, you know, you look at what a rich seam of content the present day is, you know, and look at the Doomsday heist. It wasn't like that. I mean, all right, that went slightly mad. But it was, you know, if you start dealing with characters like Elon Musk, who clearly wasn't in that game.
No, definitely not him.
Then, you know, there's loads of opportunity to use cool weapons and relatable stuff. And the power of GTA is in the satire that allows you to do. I think satirizing a pretend society, you know, all right, maybe something like Black Mirror does it really well, but I don't think it's the role of GTA to do that. I'd be staggered. And to have literal time travel, get stuffed. That's not going to happen. Like, that's mad.
Well, and that's why, you know, they're making Red Dead.
Yeah.
Why would you have GTA travel back to the Western times when you've got a whole entire game that does that for you?
Yeah, and that's not to say the game couldn't jump time periods. And, you know, in fact, GTA 5 does to an extent, where the first mission is kind of a prologue where the guys get captured in a heist and then get the band back together and a few years have elapsed. Like, that's fine. And you might even do a much more dramatic time jump where you might, and this might be the way to do it, you start the game, right? I like this the more I say it. This is basically the fact, right? You start the game in Vice City, in a prologue set in the 1980s. Every fan in the world loses their mind. And then you appear somewhere else doing something else, playing as a woman. And it will be something like, I think, like that. That'd be a way you could cross the bridge in a really sensible way, give the fans what they want, but actually be progressive and move on.
And what you'd really want from that, Rockstar marketing team, if you're listening, is just make all the trailers focused on Vice City. Like, literally everything. For the first 4 hours of that game is just Vice City, and then you don't hear anything about it until you're playing it, and it just flips into like, and now we're in 2020, and it's present day, and we're in New York.
And you say, you know, could anyone be so bold? Well, I mean, you know, literally Hideo Kojima did it back in 2001 with Metal Gear Solid 2, where he said, here's a game where you play a Solid Snake and it's set on a tanker, except it isn't, not even slightly. And you play as this blonde-haired dude you've never ever seen on this like massive anonymous, big shell platform. Mind-blowingly ahead of its time, right? So if Rockstar did that, great, but you know, it wouldn't be like, it would only be 16 years late to market.
But like Apple, we'll treat it as new because it's it's happened.
Because it's coming from Rockstar. I mean, this is sorry, we're lapsing into fantasy again here, but what I think would be a really cool thing for a first trailer would be to just show a teaser of a location and show one playable character and definitely make that a woman. I think, and just give the world the idea that you will only play as a woman, because I think it would be hilarious how that would play out in some of the less progressive online communities. And I mean, let's be honest, of course you're going to play as a man. Of course you are, right? They're not insane. They're not going to not let you play as a man. But I just think that would be a funny thing to do.
Yeah, I wanted to add in, and then in the second trailer, you add in some character switching. It switches to another woman.
Oh!
So you think you're going to... They're like, oh, this guy, they fixed it. Oh, what?
Savage.
Okay.
Savage.
All right, well, let's talk about the stars of the game then, and how the characters are going to interact in that world, and the possibility of having a female star, which GTA hasn't done before. And all signs point to, yes, they could, but they're not necessarily going to do it just because they have to.
Yeah, I think at this stage, it would be horrendous and tone deaf to not include a playable female character. It's the obvious move to represent 50% of the human race in a playable form. Like, it's beyond saying now. And I think outside of that, the social and political momentum around, women's rights is so loud, rightfully so, that they've just got to do it. I'd be staggered if they didn't. Like, you could sort of go, aha, they haven't. How daring. But it wouldn't really be to any progressive end. They've just got to do it.
So on that vibe then, what do you think the possibility of customizable characters are at the beginning of the game? So you get the choice, and then everything's centered around you as a person looking how you want.
I don't know, I think I've seen people online dismiss this out of hand, but I don't know why, because you could theoretically, have a kind of Commander Shepard style role where you've got a character who could be male or female, or, however you want to align them. But I guess the only challenge with that is that, say you are having multiple protagonists for all the reasons we've just stated, is it then like you are you and have to be a bit blank canvassy, and then there's two people who definitely mean something? I don't know what he means in the context of multiple playable characters, is what I'm saying.
If that is definitely going to remain a thing, of course.
Yeah, of course. Another massive assumption, but I think it probably will remain. And I think, GTA Online does do exactly this. It lets you be completely your own person. I would imagine that model would persist. And, true. And again, GTA forums, there's lots of people saying what they need to do is make GTA Online good again, like it was on GTA 4. Like, that's fine to say that, but are Rockstar going to retrench back on something that's made that much money and completely flip the model?
No.
I'd be staggered.
Okay, multiple protagonists then.
I'm like 90% that's going to happen, right? I feel quite confident that will happen. The interesting spin on that is, again, there's unsourced rumours going around that Rockstar might do a flip on, multiple characters where one person plays as a goodie and another as a baddie, sort of cops versus robbers. Now, where does this come from? Like, number one, probably from within fan communities. There are GTA players, online players now, who role play as cops. Mm-hmm. You can read about that in the Games Radar article I put up. Now, the other side is, and again, I don't want to apportion too much grand claim to this, but I think I literally said this on GTA 5 o'clock about 5 years ago, where I'd said, wouldn't it be cool if you played from two perspectives? And this was, again, based on what was the big show of the time, like The Wire. The Wire's ancient now, right? But that did force you to look at a complex crime or political or whatever it is network through different eyes. And that's something that I think Rockstar could very definitely play upon. And I think it would be quite interesting to... And I think this is where I think thematically it's interesting. If you think what's one of the biggest themes in the world right now, is this sense of like fake news, rise of autocratic leadership, and increasingly partisan extreme politics. And this idea that people belong in one tribe or another and never the two can meet, and we're due for all time to headbutt against each other and calcified belief sets, pro-Brexit, anti-Brexit, Ramona, I'm a staunch Brexiter. It's so aggressive. And surely Rockstar will have something to say about that, and potentially how dangerous and stupid it is, right? And I think you could really do that in a story where, unique characters have very calcified belief sets and are forced to come together in different ways.
I think that the criminal and police angle is a good one. I think that from a story perspective, that's quite a difficult thing to tell, because if you're playing as the police and you know of or don't know of a criminal activity that you've already planned or are going to do, it becomes a difficult thing to then let that play out and you try and stop a thing that you've already planned via another character. Like I think that's a hard storyline to tie together. I mean, I'm not saying they can't do it, but it's a difficult
hard, though,
concept.
Right? It's hard. The one way you could do it, though, this is really conceptual, is imagine like the Doomsday Heist, where you play. It's a co-op story mission, essentially, right? What if you made it like an overtly confrontational co-op mission? But I've no idea what that means for story structure. Like, does it mean like one of the people wins the story and then the story goes a different way? That would be a fascinating dynamic, but God knows how you make that stick in reality.
Yeah. Or I guess you have multiple characters, but you play through the game 3 times and see the stories from different perspectives. So you play as the cops one playthrough and you see how that works out, and you play as then the criminals in another playthrough and you see all the planning and the behind the scenes stuff that went into all the stuff that you did. And then you play as someone else, and maybe all of those 3 storylines with the NPCs change the interaction some way. Like if you do one thing in the police playthrough, someone might come to you and go, "Oh, I saw these guys robbing that bank," and you get a bit of a tip off or something like that. But right, couple more things. The chances of it being a fully VR game,
I would say none, being blunt. And again, I played LA Noire and HTC Vive back at Rockstar's HQ last November, and I thought it was amazing, like mind-blowing, like also sort of quite unobtainable. Like, could I afford a PC and a HTC Vive to run it? Like, well, you know, would I want to pay for it is the question. And probably on both counts, no. But it was amazing. Right? It was absolutely amazing. And it did really feel like being in a universe. You know, you look down, you had these twin controllers in your hands, you could throw pencils around, you could run amok, you could drive the car with one hand and flick the V signs to people as you went past, you could physically punch people, you could pick up a gun. It felt incredible. It was so dizzyingly, you know, intoxicating. But at the same time, part of you went, God, imagine this in GTA, imagine this in GTA. Like, the first time you kill someone or stab someone in first-person mode, I found that really a bit hard to take. It was rough. I thought that was like a massive disconnect. And you get into this whole moral, ethical spectrum then, right? In VR, even more so. If you went into a crowd of people with twin machine guns, shooting them up with PS5 graphics in VR, that is a dark place. It's a fun place, potentially. But wow, they've got some things to talk about then. And outside of the moral aspect, technically, holy wow, that is tough.
Yeah.
Like, walking in a first-person game is a nightmare. You know, even in LA Noire on Vive, they had like 4 different options for walking. But, you know, the most successful was essentially the point your own hand forward and follow the dot you put on the map. It felt so unnatural. I don't know, I just think technically. And more than anything, like economics again. How many PlayStation headsets have sold? How many Vives have sold? Are they compatible with each other? No, not really. It doesn't make any economic sense.
You can definitely see a GTA 6 VR themed spin-off like the LA Noire case files, or maybe certain elements of that game. You know, like you go into an internet cafe in the game and there's a VR area where if you put on your own headset in your house, you get access to certain mini games or special things that are going on. Like, that's probably more likely.
Definitely. That makes a lot more sense. And like, there's all sorts of ways you could spin that, even to some of the sort of more nefarious or seedy parts of, like, you know, GTA life would definitely work in VR. And I think what's interesting is Strauss Zelnick again, you know, the CEO of Take-Two. He's on record quite recently talking about essentially he's much more in favour of AR, augmented reality, which is what Microsoft are rumoured to be looking at, and various other firms, than he is VR, because again, you're not strapping a giant thing on your head. You look at the success of Pokemon Go, you tie that up to what we've just discussed about Take-Two already having interest in the mobile space and the success of the WWE. An augmented reality mobile app that works with GTA feels a lot more interesting, I think, you know, and economically much more viable.
Okay, well, we should sum all that up very briefly then. So we're into our best guesses for GTA 6 now. So I'm going to fire some questions at you and you can just fire them back.
Okay.
So release date.
Fall 2020 up to fall 2021.
Platforms.
PlayStation 5, whatever the next Xbox is, it might still be X. PC eventually. Can I add one thing to this? I think where Rockstar want to be, though the world may not move fast enough for them, is a place that's beyond platforms. I think they'd like to be essentially in a cloud and accessible where anyone can play a video game. The big thing to throw in here is Google are planning a game, I say console, it's more like a service, right? And it might just play not that exciting Android games before we all lose our minds. But there's a lot of activity and movement around services like PlayStation Now. Google are talking a similar way. I think Rockstar will have their eyes eventually on a prize that's beyond consoles. I don't think that will arrive in time for GTA 6.
No, but on that very similar line, I definitely buy a, let's say, Rockstar box that comes with a subscription that you pay X amount, £20 a year, and it just lets you play, well, let's say GTA 6, but probably all Rockstar games. And you just buy the box, it sits under your TV, it's like a little device. You plug your whatever controller you want into it, and you have access to a library of stuff. You can see that happening, definitely. I mean, it's the way everything's going. You subscribe to Netflix, you get all the films. It's probably more likely that one of the bigger consoles will do that. Like, you'll subscribe to like the PlayStation box, and then you'll get all the Sony box, and you get all of that stuff. But hey, Rockstar have got big enough dreams and ambitions that they could just release a single, we're taking our games off your platforms now, and you can only get GTA 6 on this box. I mean, wild. GTA 7 probably, but
I think it's a really interesting thing. I think they'd be more likely to partner with someone were that to be the case. Massive caveat. Strauss-Zelnick did actually get asked a question like this in the latest earnings call, where he very diplomatically talked about the strengths of working with their partners and this sort of thing. Leslie Benzies in 2013, when Tim and I interviewed him, we pressed him on the cloud thing, and he was really open to it. And if you go back and find our interview we did back then, there are lots of quotes from him talking about the possibility of GTA just living in the cloud. Okay,
so story-wise, settings, we going multiple locations?
My feeling is it will be multiple locations, present day, addressing, like GTA always has, the issues of the day, which I think are, inequality, as I say, maybe immigration, this increasing sense of partisanship, fake news, how people interlink and interrelate, women's rights. All these things can be woven into a really exciting GTA story with all the stupid frippery commentary about why's everyone gone paleo and all this sort of stuff. There's loads of fun things. I just can't see it being anything but rooted in the modern world. Cue 1970s GTA 6. But, I just think it'll be contemporary.
And then we have GTA Online. Obviously, it's going to continue as a service. It's only going to be bigger. It's probably going to involve everything that we've talked about, all of that stuff, just on a persistent online world. One thing I would say that I'd like GTA Online to do is it to be an evolving world. So you start at the beginning of the game and you see, like what we thought at the beginning of GTA 5, you see buildings being built. So they start off under construction, and as you go through the months and the years, that city changes as you keep playing it. So you're like, oh, they're opening a new casino, which never happened, but maybe they'll do it eventually. And oh, they're building a new racetrack over there, and I can take the car that I'm going to eventually save up to buy on that racetrack eventually. Like, that would be the next step.
I agree with you. I think far more interesting than going big would be to go deep. And even I remember at the time when I played Metal Gear Solid 5 after playing GTA. I remember lamenting GTA because I couldn't attach a balloon to everything and float it up out of the world. Like, there was such a greater level of depth within Metal Gear Solid 5. Now, if you take that even further to a game like Zelda, which is essentially a physics playbox, where you can... There's 5 different ways to get an apple out of a tree. You can set things on fire and use them to chase people away. You can, use magnesis to fly a magnetic chest up in the air. There's all sorts of these mad playbox experiments. GTA's been quite poor at this. It's often just been like a sort of background to a set of core mechanics. I think it'd be much more interesting, though I'm unsure if they'll do it, to build like a very small-scale GTA that's as deep as all hell. Exactly what you say, where persistent dynamics, real-world destruction and scale and building, things like, the way pedestrians behave and shops going up and down at night, much more explorable interiors, human-style AI, so characters don't behave like idiots, are 3 stock phrases. They actually... much more believable. That would be fascinating.
And that's what we thought we were looking at when we looked at some of the stuff for GTA 5. Like, there'd be rubbish collection days.
Yeah.
Every Tuesday,
Yeah.
the rubbish men would come and take, and it would pile up for the rest of the week, and then eventually they'd come and take it away. Like, that kind of stuff would really, really make the world come alive and be like totally different to anything they've done before. Especially if what we all like to do is, follow NPCs around and see what they do. If they actually had jobs, and you could follow them around, and you do something to them, or you see something happen, and then they get fired, and then you can just follow them through what happens after that. Maybe they get another job, maybe they lose their house and then end up on the streets. Like, it'd be great to follow some of those tiny stories that you might not ever see, but if you do follow one, you get a whole new experience.
See, that's quite clever, because you wouldn't have to make every single character in the world with their full multi-featured narrative. You could build a few, so for people who are looking, you only have to see a few, and it creates the illusion of a bigger world or a bigger set of, narratives, really. So that would be really exciting. Something, again, Benzies had talked about was the idea of they wanted to simulate life. And this is when he went on to talk about why they had car insurance in the game and God knows what. And throughout all of Rockstar and Take-Two's communications is about this sense of realism and immersion. That's throughout everything they do and talk about. Rockstar are also right now recruiting for, environment artists, where they talk about people who can build, I think, again, immersive worlds on next-gen systems is the way they describe it. It's very agnostic. And they're also employing interior artists. It doesn't say for GTA 6, it just says interior artists. But again, I don't know, there might be interiors in Red Dead 2. There probably are interiors in Red Dead 2. But, GTA 6, that could be the next dimension to make it all explorable. Okay, well, that about wraps up our chat for GTA 6. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to the very end. Let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know if you've got any theories or speculation or anything that you've heard that you want to talk about. We will read them. We will get back to you. Follow us on Twitter at GTAVI O'Clock and at Games Radar, and we'll have a look at some of your things on there. Me and Dan will probably be back for another special episode at some point. And hey, if you want, we might even look at a Red Dead type thing at some point in the future, because that is the next game that's on the horizon. Hopefully, now we've done 3 GTA 5 o'clocks within a 3-year span, things can accelerate. That's right. Okay, well, that wraps it up. So thanks for listening. Let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you again here very soon.